What is up, Crossfire Nation? Welcome to another edition of MMA Crossfire live from Toronto. I am your host, Kanai Andrews, the editor-in-chief of MMA Crossfire, and we have a special edition Sopranos episode for you tonight, as actor Vic Martino, who played Muzzy Nardo on the hit series, will be joining us tonight to take all of our questions and share his thoughts and experiences of being on one of the greatest shows in American television history. Now, before we begin, please and hit the bell notification icon to get all the new notifications regarding MMA Crossfire content so that we can continue to bring shows like this one, this special Sopranos edition. Now, of course, 2024 will mark the 25th anniversary of The Sopranos, which began in 1999 and ran for 6 seasons and a total of 86 episodes. In 2013, the Writers Guild of America voted The Sopranos as the best television sitcom series of all time. And Rolling Stone magazine in 2016 and 2022 ranked it number one, the number one American television show of all time as well. And of course, The Sopranos gave us a classic amount of characters, starting with, of course, the patriarch Tony Soprano, his wife Carmela, and so many other characters that we've grown to know and love throughout this beloved series. And without any further ado, let's get right into it here. Joining us again on this special Sopranos edition is actor Vic Martino, who played Muzzy Nardo on the hit series. And Vic, how you doing? There you are.
Good. Yeah. See, I'm all ready. I wore my red shirt because the Sopranos logo is always in red, and I'm going to light me up a cigar because in my episode, the Marco Polo episode I was on, Muzzy Nardo was smoking a cigar.
Absolutely.
I'm a method actor.
Method to the core. And again, we thank you for that. And Crossfire Nation, for those who are interested in what, if you're wondering how Vic Martino landed the role of Muzzy Nardo, I've put a link in the description. We have a special video in which Vic explains everything detailed to the letter in terms of how he actually landed that role of Muzzy Nardo. Now, I wanted to start off, Vic, with a question. I mentioned this is the 25th anniversary of the show. What are your thoughts of this anniversary? At 25 years, time flies, I guess, when you have a good show like The Sopranos.
Oh yeah. Listen, when I did my episode, it was 2004. But it's amazing how people are still interested, and they want to know. I was able to parlay that. I was only on that one episode, and I was told by the casting director, Vic, we would have you uh, like a semi-regular, but we've only got like one more season,
Yeah,
and we already have all the episodes planned.
right.
Unfortunately, otherwise I would have been a recurring character there, and Muzzy could have very well been a recurring character. And it's amazing the impact that the character had. That a lot of people feel, Muzzy should have been a regular there.
Yeah.
But I was able to parlay that into a lot of work. I got a lot of work from that, and it's amazing to this day. People are still interested in wanting to know how I got the part and what it was like, and so yeah, that was a really good show to be on. I was very fortunate.
So what was it like working on the show? Like what do you recall in terms of, actually being on set and interacting with everybody?
Well, I got an interesting story. Before I did that episode, I don't know exactly when, but before I got cast as Muzzy, and we won't go into that because, like you said, you put the link for the previous show we did where I explained it. But before that, I was working as an extra on The Sopranos.
Mm.
This was before I did my episode, and then they had me because I was tall, over 6 feet. They had me do. They upgraded me to a stand-in for a stripper, one of the female strippers. She was like 6'1". She was my height,
Right.
and I did stand-in for the stripper. So that's the first thing I ever did on The Sopranos.
Oh,
I
wow.
stood in for one of the strippers in the strip club, and they were all there hysterical because I'm on the stage, and I'm pretending to be the stripper, and I was making them all laugh. James Gandolfini and the whole crew, the whole cast there, and I mean that had nothing to do with me eventually getting cast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure after that they forgot all about me. I got cast much later,
Okay.
but that was the first time I ever worked on The Sopranos. I stood in for one of the female strippers.
Oh, wow. So roughly how long was that before your actual appearance?
I really don't remember. It was a good. It might have been. I'm not sure what season that was, what episode it was,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a lot. It was maybe a year or two before I actually got cast.
Okay.
So, like I said, that had nothing to do with me getting cast.
Okay.
That was a whole different ball game.
All right.
I don't even, like I said, I don't even think they remembered me after that. But yeah, it might have been a year or two before I actually got cast on the show.
All right. And were you a fan of The Sopranos before you were casted? Were you? Did you watch the
Honestly,
show?
no,
Okay.
no. I'll tell you why I wasn't. I didn't have HBO,
Oh, right.
so I never saw any of the episodes.
Right. Right. Right.
Uh, Actually, I had a friend of mine who used to have these get-togethers at his house
Mm.
when The Sopranos was on, and I was at a couple of those, and I saw a couple episodes, but I wasn't a fan until after. Eventually, I got season 2 and 5 on DVD
Okay.
because I heard they claim, I guess according to the experts, season 2 and 5 are the best episodes, the best seasons of The Sopranos.
Right.
And I was on one of the episodes
Right.
on season 5.
Right.
So I have season 2 and season 5, but I haven't seen every episode. No.
Okay. All right. And you were on season 5, episode 8 of Marco Polo, as you mentioned earlier, um, and that having seen the episode, it's one of those tender moments there, and you have a nice a scene there, checking, taking care of one of the members there. What do you recall of filming that particular scene?
Well, yes, I was Muzzy. The character I played was the guy. He was running the. The nicest word I could think of. Bordello. He was the bordello owner.
Right.
So I went from stripper, standing for a stripper, to bordello owner, and when I stood in for the stripper, the whole cast was there. Like I said, I had them hysterical, and it also turned out, what's his name? The guy from the Bruce Springsteen band.
Oh.
Oh, uh, he's a he plays in the Bruce
Yeah.
Springsteen band.
Yeah, I know who you're talking
He
about.
was on the show.
Yeah, he's on the show. Yeah. Well, the
Oh,
name
I can't recall his name. Oh, this is terrible. I should know the guy's name. He's a
I think it's
famous
Dominic,
musician.
isn't it? Is it Dominic?
No, well, I'm trying to think of his real name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was in the. Anyway, he turned out to be a big D. Martin fan. He was talking about D. Martin. So
Okay.
I hear this, and this is while I'm the stripper. I hear him mentioning D. Martin. So I do a good D. Martin impression. I say, everybody loves somebody
Stephen Van
sometime.
Zandt. Stephen Van Zandt.
That's it, Stephen Van Zandt.
Yeah.
And they call him Little Stevie.
Right. Right.
Yeah, sorry, Stevie. I should have knew your name off the top of my head. Sorry about that. But he's a big D. Martin fan, believe it or not.
Wow.
So I started doing my D. Martin impression. Oh, he loved it. He was cracking up. So I made a good impression with them. But like I said, that had nothing to do with me being cast.
Okay.
What did you ask me again? I'm sorry. You asked me about.
Yeah.
Oh, that day on. Okay, the day when I played Muzzy, none of the cast was there. They weren't in that scene.
Okay.
It was only me, which luckily none of the lead guys were in the scene because the scene kind of focused on me.
Right. Right.
Me and this guy who played uh, the other character that winds up getting whacked. We
Right.
were the only ones in that scene.
Right.
So
So there was that
none of
scene.
those main characters were there that day.
So the escort wasn't there either. The
What do you
escort
mean the
wasn't.
escort?
No, like when she comes in and he says, "Are you
Oh
going
no,
now?"
she was there.
Oh,
No,
she was there.
no, when I say the main characters weren't there, I'm talking about James Gandolfini.
Okay.
The main characters,
Okay.
they
Right.
weren't there.
Okay.
It was only the ones that you see in the scene. Me,
Okay.
the stripper,
Okay.
and the guy that gets whacked.
Right.
But no Tony Soprano or any of the other Paulie Walnuts, any of the other main characters, none of them were there that day.
Were people standing in for
And like
them?
I said, fortunately they weren't because the scene, focused on me instead of them.
Right. So people were standing in for them then. Were
No,
they?
no, they weren't in the
Oh,
scene.
oh, okay. Okay. All right. So that's
The
great.
scene you see of me me running the whorehouse,
Really.
but yeah, none of them were there in the whorehouse. They weren't
Okay.
there. It was only me and the guy who winds up getting whacked
Okay.
at the end of the episode. He gets shot in the car
Right.
by
Right.
Steve Buscemi.
Right.
So they were the only ones there that day. We were shooting that scene, and so nobody else was there.
All right.
They weren't there that day. They weren't needed. So
So
that
so
was just my scene being shot.
so was
So
it
I didn't get to work with any of the main characters.
okay? Was it a full day for you? How long do you recall it taking to film that scene?
Yeah, it was a full day. Unfortunately, fortunately slash unfortunately, I'm a quick study. I'm a very fast, and I always get the scenes in one take.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, the director was very impressed. He gave me direction to do something, and I did it. He went, "Oh, okay, good." I guess he was take two, take three, take four, and I get things in one take. So I could have stretched it out and made a lot more money.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I'm a quick study. I could look at a script the day before or the day of, and I'll have all the lines down.
Right. Right. You're a
So, and it
professional.
didn't take a lot of rehearsal. I got it very fast. And there was a scene where he said to me, originally the scene had even less lines than it did, and he said, perhaps you should say something to one of the women, one of the girls here. And I right away off the top of my head, I thought of something. I said, "Hey, come on, get to work. Time is money." And he was like, "Yeah, that's good. Keep that."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
and
directors
that
like
scene was actually I said that line off the top of my head. So
right.
it didn't take that long
So
because I'm a very quick. I get things very fast.
you were a natural basically.
Yeah, I guess so. I've been told. Also, I did get called back. Okay, originally,
Hmm.
excuse me while I puff on my cigar now and then. Originally, it's a good cigar. I want to keep it lit. Originally, the line was, "Here's your sandwich, Joe. It's bigger than last week's." And I won't say anything more. When they click on the link you told them to click on, they'll get the full story of that line.
Right.
But that was the line originally. And then they decided to change it. They didn't want the word sandwich in there.
Mm-hmm.
So they called me back an extra day to just to redub that line.
Okay.
So now instead of "Here's your sandwich, Joe. It's bigger than last week's." Now it's "Here it is, Joe. It's bigger than." And now the line is there, but without the word sandwich.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They had me redub it and not you and take out the word sandwich.
Right.
So I actually got paid an extra day for the dubbing.
Okay.
So
That worked
I
out
had
well.
no problem with that.
Yeah, that worked out well. Okay. Now, when okay, so you had the
But
extra
I got to
day.
say for the listeners, hold on. The word sandwich is a very key word into how I got the part, and you will find out when you click on the link that's attached here.
A very, very critical word. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, okay, so you have the extra day's pay, and for dubbing. What do you recall? Having finished the scene, and what do you recall of the reaction of the episode and your scene afterwards? Like, did friends call you and say, "Hey, that was great"? Or
Well, I got a great reaction from the director and all the people that were there,
Mm.
but well, it didn't air right away. Of course, it took a while. When
Right.
it eventually came on, oh man, people made more of a big deal out of it than I did. To me, it was just another part, you know, just another job.
Mm.
But to everyone else, oh man, you were on The Sopranos, and I'm like, and I, you know, I don't know if I'm being overly modest, but well, it wasn't that big a part. Oh no, but you were on The Sopranos. You had a speaking line. Oh, it was great. You had a main character. You got billing, Vic Martino, Muzzy Nardo, and it was a bigger deal to my friends and to people that, you know, friends would say, "Hey, he was on The Sopranos," and they would make a bigger deal out of it than I did.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, people, when they hear I was on The Sopranos, and it's usually other people telling them, you know, I don't like to blow my own horn.
Mm.
Other people saying, "Oh, you were on The Sopranos. Oh yeah, I saw your episode. Oh, that it was great." So it had, you know, an impact that I never would have dreamed of, and I got a lot of work from that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I really parlayed into other jobs. So yeah, it was a that was something that I'll always be proud of.
Absolutely. And you mentioned before that, previously, when you were standing in for the stripper, you had you made the entire cast laugh at some of your antics there in your stand-in. Did you have any other interactions with some of the main cast, like James or Tony or anybody?
Well, just Steve Van. Well, I did one. I told you when I did the
Yeah.
D Martin impression when I heard them talking about D Martin, and Steve
Right.
Van Zandt was turned out to be such a big fan of D Martin. They all were actually, and D Martin is one of my showbiz idols. So I was, you know, I did the impression, and they started laughing. But other than that, you know, I really didn't have much reaction with them. Although I
Hmm.
will say the the fact that most of the jobs I got from being on The Sopranos were not actually acting jobs. It was, you know, I was mainly made a living as an entertainer. I would do acting on the side, but I was more of a comedian and a singer, and I worked Atlantic City and Las Vegas. And so what I did was I got a lot of jobs from people that used to book me as a comedian and a singer, and they would book me as this character. I made Muzzy, the Muzzy Nardo character, into my own character,
Right.
and to perform live at these live events. And I pimped him out. I put on a red jacket, the gold chain, you know, silk black shirt, sunglasses, and I would be this Muzzy character. Hey, how's everybody doing? All right. And I would do stand up comedy as this Muzzy character, and I would sing, you know, like Frank Sinatra, D. Martin, Sammy Davis Jr. And I would do that kind of thing. And that's I got a lot of work like that. And I also got work doing, I don't know what you would call it. I guess like being the life of the party. They would call these agents would call me to be this Muzzy character at people's like parties, like I'm trying to give a good example here. Like, say somebody was having a birthday party, and the guy was
Right.
a Soprano, or the guy or the woman, the man or the woman was a Sopranos fan, and
Right.
they would have me show up as this Muzzy character,
Okay. Okay.
and that would be his like surprise birthday
Right.
party,
Right.
you know,
Right.
birthday surprise, and I'd be, hey, happy birthday, yo, you know, that kind of thing. So I got a lot of those kind of life of the party gigs, where I
Another
would just
thing.
show up at people's parties.
That's awesome. I could see you doing
Yeah,
too, Vic. You could be doing like, voicemail messages. Hey, this is Muzzy Nardo. This person's not
yeah.
at home right now,
I
but
never did that, but yeah, I guess I could have. Yeah,
and you still could
I did
actually.
everything else practically.
Yeah, yeah. I think that line is still open there, but that's awesome. Like, you mentioned, Dean Martin and the Rat Pack and everything like that. It's very important that not just The Sopranos, but The Godfather and a lot of these shows, they rely a lot on that history. Those the art of entertaining. The Johnny Fontaine characters, and a lot of these like the Rat Pack was the backbone of a lot of these shows.
Well, yeah, you see a lot of those performers, Frank Sinatra, D. Martin, Sammy Davis Jr. You know, when they were around, the mob guys owned a lot of those nightclubs they performed in.
Right.
And the mob guys were running Las Vegas and Atlantic City. And I caught the tail end of that when I was performing. So
Right.
when you were a performer, an entertainer, a singer, comedian, whatever, you got to know a lot of those guys.
Right.
So they were part of the history of the mob.
Right.
Those type of entertainers.
Right.
Like I said, Las Vegas, Atlantic City, all the nightclubs, New York City, wherever, were all mob run. And
Right.
so all those entertainers, had to associate with them.
Right.
And the mob guys respected those kind of entertainers.
Right.
They loved Sinatra, D. Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Bobby Darin, even Elvis Presley, whoever. Because that went hand in hand.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And it got me thinking of the theme song and the intro. The intro of for the Soprano iconic. Tony's driving in.
Oh, sure,
You know,
absolutely.
I was thinking it kind of reminded me in a way of the Flintstones, actually, Vic. And let me piece it together because with the Flintstone intro, Fred is, he gets up and he's driving to work, right?
Yeah, Tony Soprano kind of does remind you of Fred Flintstone.
Yeah, he's kind of doing the same thing, but I think it's a disguise, though. I think it's disguised for the Sopranos because I don't think Tony's actually going to work in the intro. I think he's actually
Mm-hmm.
coming from whatever he did all night, his mob activities, etc., and he's coming back from what from his business affairs. He's coming back.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about The Sopranos. The director David Chase left a lot of that open
Yeah,
ended, so
yeah,
people could just imagine what they want to imagine.
yeah, yeah.
Like the last episode
Right,
where it just blacks out,
right.
and a lot of people uh, feel that Tony Soprano wound up getting shot. Some feel he didn't.
What do you think?
You know, it's open end. Here's what I think.
Yeah.
Now this is the comedian in me.
All right.
I feel. Remember in that episode where they were in the diner
Hmm.
and they brought them over a plate of onion rings
Right.
before they had their whatever their meal was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think that Tony Soprano wound up dying by choking on one of those onion rings. And that's when it ends, it blacks out. I feel that Tony Soprano wound up choking to death on one of those onion rings. And that, for me, that's how The Sopranos ended.
Now, Tony Soprano has probably eaten thousands of onion rings in many different fashions.
Yeah, he sure does look like it, doesn't he?
Yeah. So, what would make Tony Soprano choke on this particular onion ring?
That's right. That's right. It could have been poisoned.
Because there is that Godfather reference in that same scene. The guy goes into the bathroom, right?
Yes.
In that scene, to mimic the Godfather one scene when he kills the sergeant. When Michael kills the sergeant. And there's a lot of other.
Oh, let me tell you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say about those onion rings. They shot that at a real diner in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And after that episode, everybody, that diner got real popular. Everybody wants to eat there.
Mm.
Well, that diner didn't serve onion rings.
Oh.
And everybody would go there for the onion rings. So they had to wind up, after that episode was shot, they had to wind up selling onion rings.
Oh my! Wow. Yeah, you
Yeah,
have to.
that's a true
You have
story.
to.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're leaving a lot of business on the table if you don't add the onion rings. That's awesome. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so up until that episode, that diner did not serve onion rings.
Mm.
But after that episode, you bet your life they served onion rings.
Absolutely. You bet your life. Absolutely. And of course, David Chase also finally weighed in after leaving it, after not really commenting. I think he finally gave in and shared his thoughts on that scene as well. But yeah,
I got to tell you, honestly, when I saw that episode, I was disappointed. I thought it was anticlimactic. I didn't like the fact that it just blacked out.
Mm. Okay.
I would have liked something to happen,
It's still
actually, I would have liked to see Tony Soprano get shot.
Yeah.
Because I don't like bad guys. And even though, yes, I'm Italian American, I feel the mob is a disgrace. They're not heroes. I read this book, the five. What's this book? The title of the book? I think it's called The Five Families. I have it somewhere. I don't want to get up here, but I have it on my bookshelf. And you read this book, and you really see how they were like a cancer on society.
Yeah.
They cost society lots of money, and mostly poor people. They weren't Robin Hoods. They weren't robbing from the rich and giving to the poor.
Maybe in the
They were actually, and well, in a way, they stole more from working people, and they made the prices of everything go up. Construction, they cost the city a lot of money. So those guys are a disgrace, disgraziata, as we say in Italian. They're not heroes. And I knew mob guys. I grew up with them, and I always felt that way.
Okay.
I mean, I did a documentary. You could see it on YouTube. Williamsburg, Brooklyn, then and now. My mother and her friends, and my mother was friends with these mobsters, and I was also not really friends, but I knew them, and they were good with us. I only saw their good side, but I knew what they were, and I didn't look up to them, and nobody should. And I don't like bad people that hurt other people. I don't like people that make money from being greedy and all they care about is money over human beings. I do not like those kind of people. And I would have liked to see Tony Soprano get his just desserts.
Some would argue, Vic, that that blackout part is what Tony would have seen had he been shot. He would have just, boom,
Yes, well, that's why it's open to interpretation.
Yeah.
So I like to think, I was joking about the choking on the onion rings. I like to think that, yes, it blacked out, he got shot. And then, unfortunately for the actor, James Gandolfini, he wound up dying. He wound up dead.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if they wanted to bring him back, they can't.
Yeah.
Tony Soprano, James Gandolfini, the actor who played Tony Soprano, is no longer with us. No. And I don't really feel sorry for the guy because they just recently did a documentary about the Sopranos. Very good documentary. And James Gandolfini was a problem. He was very problematic to work with.
Okay.
He was always asking for more money, and the guy lived a life of excess. Okay. He overate. He did too many drugs, cocaine. So he basically killed himself. So I don't feel sorry for someone like that. He had everything to live for, and being an excessive, overindulgent person, he ruined it all. Wow. You know how many people would have loved to have the break he got? And look what he does with it. He could have been. I parlayed a small part into a lot of work. This guy would have had a career forever, and he goes and ruins it by being overindulgent. Has no self-control, overeats, does drugs, cocaine. So, I can't feel sorry for a guy like that. He died young, way too young, unfortunately. I'm not saying he should have, but what I'm saying is he did it to himself.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, how him and also Tony Sirico, I believe, also passed away as well.
But Tony Sirico was James Gandolfini was still young. I mean, Tony Sirico was up there in age.
Yeah.
I don't know what he died. How did he? Do you know how Tony Sirico died?
I don't. But I believe it wasn't anything nefarious like
not like James Gandolfini.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was more natural type of thing, heart attack or something.
Speaking of Tony Sirico, after my Sopranos episode, I was in this movie called Family on Board with Tony Sirico.
Okay.
And we were in the scene together. Right. So we had this, sort of a reunion, although he wasn't there the day I shot my scene.
Remember you bouncing on the stripper pole from years before?
I reminded him of that. And also I told him, of course, he knew I was Muzzy Nardo.
Yeah.
And so, yes, he was, I had a good time working with him. It was a movie called Family on Board, which unfortunately never got released. I don't know what happened to it. Right. But we did work on this movie together, and I was in the same scene with him. I was in a few other scenes. Okay. He was just in this one scene. And he was sort of brought on board to Family on Board to get some name actors in the film so that it would get released.
Okay.
But it still didn't get released. They make a lot of movies that don't get released.
Yeah.
I was in a movie with Al Pacino called People That I Know. Now you're probably thinking, to yourself, people that I know, I don't know that.
I don't recall
It
that.
never got released. And
Okay.
Al Pacino was the star.
Okay. Wow.
So there's a lot of I think it did go straight to video though.
Okay.
Uh, and I played. I was. He played a politician in this film,
Hmm.
and I played a policeman who was. I had a scene where I was uh, uh, arresting this protester, public advocate,
Right.
and but like I said, unfortunately, this film didn't get released. Family on Board didn't. I did a lot of unreleased films. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of films get made, they don't get released for whatever reason. They run out of money, or I've done a few. I've done a few independent movies where they don't get released because they don't have any, stars, quote stars, in the film. It's not easy to get a movie released,
Yeah. Or they just
and
end up on the shelf. Yeah.
the proof of the pudding is you got a movie starring Al Pacino, and that doesn't get released.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. What did you just say? I interrupted you.
No, you were just. I was just thinking. A lot of those movies go straight to video, and you don't really hear about them until you go to the Walmart or something. You go to the bargain bin, you see these movies, and like they have Al Pacino or a major star, and you wonder why you never saw them. I guess.
Exactly. I was in one of those. Well, now you don't have those kind of video stores anymore. Well, it might have been DVD. I don't remember because
Yeah, it
now
was.
everything's
Yeah,
DVD.
yeah,
Yeah, but I was. I forget. Was one of those like. They used to have a lot of these big outlets, stores where you would get videos or DVDs
like a
and
blockbuster
albums.
or a blockbusters or something like that.
Well, it wasn't Blockbuster. No, I'm trying to think of Manhattan. There was two I used to always go to.
Oh, okay.
Very famous. And I would get my DVDs there. Anyway, I'm in one day, and I'm looking through the bin, and I see people that I know, and the Al Pacino movie I was in. I'm like, oh, this was the Al Pacino movie I was in. so, so it went straight to DVD.
Wow.
But yeah, a lot of movies, you know, they don't get released in theaters, straight to DVD. Particularly nowadays, it's getting harder to. I think since COVID, a lot of people just got used to watching, streaming things online, and they don't go to movie theaters like they used to.
Yeah,
I still like to go to see a movie in a movie theater, and now when I go, it's only like a handful of people in the theater.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of fans would think Sopranos. I think there was like a related movie that they made with the Sopranos. I think it featured a young Tony Soprano.
Yes, it was supposed to be like a prequel,
Yeah,
Tony Soprano when he was younger,
right.
and that disappeared fast. It did.
Yeah, yeah,
I never got a chance to see it.
yeah. It did. Yeah, I think it was made during the pandemic or I think the pandemic affected that movie big time. But if they did a reboot, Vic, like some kind of reboot, whether it was TV or a movie or something, would you be interested in participating? They brought you back as Muzzy or
Oh,
another character?
sure, I would love to. As a matter of fact, if they were doing that, I would make it my business to find out who was casting.
Mm,
The casting director, and I would submit myself and say, "Hey, I was Muzzy on the Marco Polo episode," and
yeah.
because I can't tell you how many times people tell me, "Oh, Vic, man, you should have had a bigger part. You'd have been perfect on that show."
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
actually
I
had people tell
agree.
me.
I
I've actually
agree.
had people tell. I've actually had people tell me I should have been Tony Soprano. But anyway, people always say to me, "Oh, Vic, you'd have been great on that show, man,"
Yeah.
and I would have. So if any of you casting directors are watching this, and you're thinking of reviving The Sopranos in any way, I want you to keep Vic Martino in mind.
Absolutely. No, I
Let's
100%
bring
agree.
let's bring back Muzzy Nardo.
Again, Crossfire Nation, we're speaking with actor Vic Martino here, who played Muzzy Nardo on the hit series The Sopranos on MMA Crossfire Live. Do you have any special moments or favorite moments of the show? I know you focused on season 2 and 5. Do you have any favorite moments from those particular seasons that come to your mind?
Oh, there's probably too many. I mean, it really was a good show. There
It
were a lot
was a
of good
good show.
episodes. A
Like
lot of
for
good
me,
episodes, but there.
no, good.
Go ahead.
No, I was
No,
saying
there
for
were
me.
also a lot of.
Oh, sorry. We got great timing.
Yeah. Oh, we
Yeah,
can never be a comedy team.
no, no. Abbott and
Maybe we
Costello.
can
No,
actually.
you could be Abbott and Costello, and I'll be the audience. How's that?
Well, as you know, I used to do an Abbott and Costello act,
That's right.
but I don't want to get off topic. No, there's been a lot of uh, good episodes, but also honestly, there were a lot of episodes I didn't like.
Yeah,
It wasn't consistent,
yeah,
and so it's not. I mean, it's one of my favorite shows, but it's not one of my top favorite shows. I mean,
yeah,
I like. I mean, look at Law and Order. It's been on for years, and it's still good.
yeah.
I mean, many more episodes than The Sopranos ever did.
Sure.
The Sopranos didn't do nearly as many
86
episodes
episodes.
as Law and Order.
Only
And
86
Law and
episodes.
Order, and I liked NYPD Blue.
Yeah,
I like Blue Bloods.
yeah, yeah.
I like Columbo. I'm
Sure.
sorry to bother you. He smoked a cigar. Yeah, Columbo. I'm sorry to bother you. Just one more thing. Columbo. So, The Sopranos didn't really do all that many episodes a
Yeah.
season. There wasn't that many.
And I think,
So it might be overrated. Sorry to
yeah.
say.
Well, I think the fact that it was on HBO, right? I think that was a part of the problem there because they were very picky, and they wrote it while it was hot, but the minute they thought it might have been cooled down, they dropped it like a hot potato or cold potato.
Well, HBO at the time, let's give The Sopranos credit. It was a show that really put HBO on the map.
It did. It
Yes.
did.
And I'm not, it was a good show. It was a really good show.
Yeah.
But like I said, there weren't all. There were some episodes that this is my own personal opinion, that I wasn't happy with.
Sure.
But there were a lot of really good episodes.
Oh,
But
yeah.
if you compare The Sopranos to the shows I mentioned,
Right.
that there's so many more episodes than The Sopranos ever had.
Right.
Those shows are much better because they're much more consistent.
Right. So then, what is the legacy of The Sopranos then, as it enters the 25th year now? It's still very much in the public eye. A lot of people from many different generations recall it fondly from different views, perhaps. What should the legacy be? How should people remember it?
Well, you could say it was probably one of the best, if not the best, mob television show ever.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
people today still get excited when they hear I was on The Sopranos. It's still very popular.
Yeah.
Younger generation are watching it now on DVD or online or whatever.
Yeah.
So yes, it definitely one of the best television shows ever about the mafia.
Right.
Movies, as far as movies, it's got to be The Godfather,
Right.
Godfather 2,
Goodfellas.
Goodfellas,
Yeah. Goodfellas. Yeah.
Casino.
Casino. Yeah.
I love Scarface,
Right. Right. Yeah. Scarface. Yeah.
Carlito's Way. So there's a lot of good mob movies.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as television shows, I say The Sopranos is probably the best one.
Yeah, and it probably presented, it gave a different generation something that previous generations had with The Godfather. The Sopranos was something that the Generation X or whatever the generation was could claim as their own.
Also, you could say that The Sopranos might have been more realistic because The Godfather kind of overly glamorized them.
Right, right, right. Yeah, this was like
Sopranos. The Sopranos is sort of the Hollywood version of the mafia.
Right.
But The Sopranos showed you what lowlives they were.
Right, right.
And so did Goodfellas.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, big time, big time. Yeah, that
Whereas
was
The Godfather, I think it overly glamorized them.
Yeah.
Well,
it was a different time, obviously, in the 70s there, and you have to start somewhere, and I guess you start with the most romantic version, I guess, of what you're trying to start. But yeah,
right. Also, I think these days we're more into realism. So
yeah, it's a different era. Realism is more in, and this was definitely a more nuts and bolts edition. It's kind of like Home Improvement of, the mob. Tony Soprano was Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Yeah. Well, one of the first one of the first TV shows, and I don't know if it really holds up as well. I mean, I still like it. Was The Untouchables?
Oh yeah,
The Untouchables,
yeah.
and that dealt with the mob,
Hmm.
although not very realistic.
Right.
And the Robert Stack played Elliot Ness. Elliot Ness in real life was not anything like the Robert Stack character on the show.
No, no.
You know, they made him into like this crime fighter. You know,
Yeah.
uh,
A
he
superhero.
got yeah, like Batman.
Yeah.
Elliot Ness, he got Al Capone in jail from tax evasion. He didn't go after him. Elliot Ness never took out a gun and, you know, guns blazing. They had to, you know, beef it up for the television show. But
Right.
it is an entertaining television show. But
Right.
I don't know if it holds up as well today.
Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah, the
Oh,
production.
actually, if I might mention something interesting, on one of the episodes of The Untouchables, my documentary, the film I made, uh, my mother and her friends, Williamsburg, Brooklyn, then and now, my mother and her friends. One of her friends being James Jimmy Knapp Napoli,
Okay.
who was really the neighborhood godfather.
Okay.
He was the real deal.
Right.
Well, in one of the Untouchables episodes, one of the actors is playing Jimmy Knapp.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the episodes, Jimmy Knapp Napoli. And
Okay.
I remember as a kid, you know, my mother and I were watching the Untouchables, and
Hmm.
this episode comes on, and I said to my mother, "Is that supposed to be Jimmy Knapp?"
Hmm.
And she just kind of looked. I don't just she didn't expect it either. Of course, it was very it was very it wasn't true at all, the episode.
Hmm.
But you know, Elliot Ness did not smack around Jimmy Knapp.
Oh no. Oh
No
no.
way in hell.
No way. Oh no.
But that's what was happening in this episode.
Yeah. That's yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people understand, like, there are a lot of embellishments in these things, and it plays off like a superhero movie, like, like there's no way that Elite Nets would be slapping around a figure like that. No way.
No, and also the newer, more modern day version. It was made a few years ago of The Untouchables with Robert De Niro.
Hmm.
That was also a lot of hyperbole.
Oh
That
yeah.
wasn't based on any fact at all.
It's
Oh, Kevin
only
Costner played Elliot Ness in the movie,
yeah.
and Robert De Niro played Al Capone. A very entertaining movie,
Oh yeah.
but nothing true about it.
The entertainment was the focus, like Dick Tracy, the '90s Dick Tracy with Warren Beatty and Madonna. Like, it was more focused on the story, and if they needed a little embellishment, they were not shy about bumping it up a few notches.
Well, Dick Tracy wasn't a real person at all. There was no such a there was never a
Yeah,
Dick Tracy,
but it
but
was based on
there
it
was
was
an Elliot Ness.
but Dick Tracy was based on a particular character, right? Of the a
No,
particular.
no, Dick Tracy. No, Chester Gould
Okay.
was the creator of Dick Tracy. He just came up with a character for the newspaper comic strips.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, no, he wasn't based on any. As far as I know, I could be wrong,
Okay.
but as far as I know, he wasn't based
No,
on any real character.
I will defer to you. You're the historian uh, for these.
Well, I'm not an expert on Dick Tracy. So.
I just remember that
I am an expert on Batman, and we
okay.
definitely got to do a Batman show in the near
Oh,
future.
we absolutely do, and we'll definitely get a Dark Knight episode again. Thank you
I
for
probably know more about Batman than I do about the Sopranos.
yeah, and I'd like to thank at this point Crossfire Nation for getting us to this point, for having Vic on, so that we can talk about the Sopranos, so that we can get to other episodes like the Dark Knight, and hey, how Abbott and Costello and other pivotal figures.
Well, do you think anybody would be interested in Abbott and Costello anymore? I'm not sure about that.
I think there would, but it depends on how it's presented.
Well,
As you,
let me tell the viewers why we're bringing
yeah,
up Abbott and Costello.
sure,
One of the things I did in my performance career, I used to work with. Well, I had about a handful of partners, and we would do an Abbott and Costello act where I would be Bud Abbott,
right,
and I would work with this other comedian doing Lou Costello,
right,
and we would do all their famous comedy routines. Of course, the most famous being the baseball routine, "Who's on first,"
right.
but there's a lot of other routines, and we did a whole like 40-minute to an hour set of these comedy routines, and it always went over well. But I don't know if millennials will appreciate Abbott and Costello anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They would have to be shown something, kind of
Well,
like
people
how.
always enjoy who's on first.
Yeah,
It's amazing that routine to this day gets a lot of people hysterical. I
right.
never thought it was. Excuse me. I never thought it was all that funny.
Hmm.
It was the timing.
Yeah,
The timing is what makes that routine, not the actual dialogue.
right,
Who's on first? What's on second? I don't know who's on third. It's kind of silly, but it's the timing between Abbott and Costello
right.
that put that routine over.
Like if one of the the celebrities of today went on like Jimmy Fallon or one of those shows and said that Abbott and Costello was their mentor or they loved Abbott and Costello, I think that kind of would spark the millennials to look into Abbott and Costello more, and that might generate some
Well, wait
momentum.
a minute, you got a point there because Jerry Seinfeld, although I don't know how millennials feel about Jerry Seinfeld, but Jerry Seinfeld, who was a very popular comedian of his
Right,
day, he said his inspiration was Abbott and Costello. He
mhm,
actually did a special on NBC
right,
about Abbott and Costello, and he was showing these Abbott and Costello clips.
exactly,
And he said a
exactly.
lot of the characters from Seinfeld he based on the Abbott and Costello show,
There you
and
go.
he was actually playing a modern day Bud Abbott.
Right, right. Yeah, I
And
think
the
it's
little guy, what's his name, Costanza, was the Costello.
George.
And not just Seinfeld. You mentioned Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon had Seinfeld on, and I forget who the other comedian, and they did a modern day version of Who's on First
All
on
right.
Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. So they do something
Yeah.
like that, a segment like that, that that creates a massive interest in Abbott and Costello, and then it could generate the momentum to actually people to look further into those two, and who knows what happens. They do a documentary, it leads to something else, and there you go.
Well, you could check out I think the Seinfeld, if you type in Seinfeld Abbott Costello, I think that's on YouTube. And the Jimmy Fallon, Who's on First,
Yeah,
that's on YouTube.
yeah,
Oh man, I love YouTube. God bless YouTube. You can see everything
absolutely.
on YouTube, almost everything,
I
and
think
so you can see that for yourself how a modern day, version of doing the Abbott Costello routines, and the audience,
mhm,
like when I used to do the routines,
mhm,
when we would do it as ourselves, most of the time we were getting paid to be Abbott Costello, but there were times like in certain, I actually performed the Who's on First routine in comedy clubs with this partner I was working with, but we would do it as ourselves. We wouldn't
mhm.
come out in the old clothes,
Right.
the old suits. We would do it as ourselves.
Mhm.
And the younger crowd, they would eat it up. They loved
Yeah,
it. As a matter
yeah,
of fact, I have a video on YouTube. You could see it.
right,
Who's doing Who's on First in front of the live. I think it's titled Who's on First Live, and you'll
right.
see us doing the Abbott Costello routine in front of a live a young comedy club crowd, and they love it. So you're right.
Yeah,
It's how it's presented. It's all
yeah.
in the presentation.
You're retelling a story, but you're customizing it for a new generation that understands how you're customizing it, and you're retelling that story for in that frame of reference. Just like Batman, right? Like the Dark Knight is told in a certain way, and
Exactly.
the Batmans of the '90s are told in a different way for that particular generation, and each one kind of each generation has their own that they can call their own. So
Well, I think now. Well, we'll save Batman for when
we'll
we
see
do the
that.
episode of.
But
But I
talking
just
about
want to say, I think Batman now is better than ever.
oh yeah, Batman's firing on all cylinders. Now I want to get back to Sopranos here. I think there needs to be a
Yeah.
Sopranos musical. There needs to be a Sopranos musical. What do you think about that?
You know something? A friend of mine, Ross Belsky, who's a very good comedian, up
Yeah.
and coming comedian,
Hmm.
he actually did a Sopranos musical,
Oh wow.
but it was like off Broadway.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he doesn't have a lot of money behind him.
Yeah.
You need money when you get. Ideas are one thing. Everybody has ideas,
Yeah.
but you got to have the money to get it off the ground, or have
Absolutely.
somebody invest in your idea. And that's
Absolutely.
what he's working on. He's
Okay.
working on a Sopranos musical. I think it
Okay.
was called The Sopranos on a Plane with Snakes, or something like that. And it was a Sopranos musical, and he wants to revive it.
Hmm.
And he asked if I would be in it. So
Okay.
I'll probably be working on the Sopranos musical, and I'll update
Oh,
you on that in the near
wow.
future.
Well, breaking news. That's awesome. Okay. So We'll keep an eye out for that. That's awesome stuff. I always thought, because you had Little Shop of Horrors and Silence of the Lambs. I think had a musical. Why not the Sopranos? I mean, it would lend itself amazingly to the stage in the theater.
I think it would. They're doing a Batman. I don't know if it's a musical, but they're doing a Batman Broadway show
Mhm.
based on Michael Uslan, who is the executive producer, and I highly recommend getting his book called The Boy Who Loved Batman. Even if you don't love Batman, this is a really good read. And then he did a follow-up called Batman's Batman. But his book, The Boy Who Loved Batman, they're planning on doing a Broadway show
Right.
based on that book.
Right, that's awesome. Like they're getting a lot of ideas and bringing this stuff to the theater, and I think it's great because it just brings like another audience again. It tells the story to again a different segment of the theatrical audience, and just generates momentum, and it's a fresh take on a classic story.
Oh, but speaking of classic, let me just point out because we mentioned Abbott and Costello. If you notice the coffee cup I'm drinking out of,
Hey, there's Laurel and Hardy.
Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. So
Yeah,
yes, I'm a big fan of comedy teams.
absolutely.
Maybe we'll do an episode just talking about comedy teams and not just Abbott Costello, but
Yeah.
comedy teams in general.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like to give some shine to a lot of those great teams that maybe generations of today are not familiar with, and kind of show them why they're relevant and why a lot of their work continues to show up. Just that maybe they're not
Yes, also
aware of.
also they were pioneers. They were very inventive, and certain ones like the Marx Brothers, you could argue were ahead of their time.
They were.
You know,
They
and
were.
well, I'll save. I got a lot. I got plenty of things to talk about when it comes to comedy, so we'll save that.
We'll say
But
that.
to get back to the Sopranos, the funny thing is, well, this has nothing to do with the Sopranos really, but the characters of Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
I had an idea to do like a comedy team based like Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci, like
In
an
which
actually
movie
an
though?
Abbott and Costello.
Oh, okay.
Robert De Niro like the Bud Abbott and Joe
Okay.
Pesci like the Lou Costello. And I thought,
Yeah.
and two guys actually did that. There's
Okay.
these two guys who impersonate Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci, and they actually did a Who's on First type routine together.
Oh,
So
that brings it
somebody,
back
you see,
hilarious.
yes, I get these ideas, and then I eventually see somebody doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hilarious. So I wonder what Pesci would think of that. He'd do it himself. I'm thinking he'd be receptive to something like that. But
Well, here, let me give you a little Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci doing Who's on First, okay?
all right.
All right, we got Who's on First, what's on second, I don't know what's on third. Hey, yeah, that's what I want to find out. I want to know the guys' names. I'm telling you, be quiet, listen, pay attention. Who's on first, what's on second, I don't know who's on third. Hey, what the hell are you talking about? You know who's the guy on first? Yeah, I'm telling you who's on first. Well, what's the guy's name? That's his name. Hey, Madan, what's the matter with you?
Yeah. I mean, even in my generation, like, with hip hop music, um, they used a lot of samples in their music. They would grab little clips, little voice samples. And I'm telling you, a
Oh,
lot of these hip hop artists used to grab stuff like Abbott and Costello and, a lot of those
well,
classic.
they love Sinatra. You know how
Yeah.
many hip hop guys are fans of Sinatra?
Oh,
And
oh,
remember, at one time you saw them all wearing a T-shirt with the very famous picture of Sinatra's mugshot.
hmm hmm
Before Sinatra was famous,
hmm
he was arrested, and they have a picture of his mugshot.
yeah,
And the reason he was arrested was he had an affair with a married woman,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
husband had him arrested. But
yeah,
anyway, so it was nothing, mob related or anything like that.
yeah,
But there's a picture of him, his mugshot, and the rappers all had that mugshot they wore as a T-shirt.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, Jay Z and
yeah.
P Diddy,
Wu-Tang
Snoop
Clan,
Dogg.
they
They
all
all
got
they
it.
all love Sinatra.
Yeah, yeah, they do. And but they also love they love the gangster movies, of course, and I'm sure they love
Yes.
The Sopranos as well. It's all
Oh,
embedded
I'm
there.
sure.
They eat it all up, and it shows in their music. They reference them a lot in their music. But Vic, we're almost out of time here. I know you're very busy, so I just want to ask you this very quickly before we go off today. Again, we're talking with Vic Martino, who played Muzzy Nardo on The Sopranos. You can check him out in the season 5, episode 8 episode Marco Polo. He's also appeared in many other movies. He mentioned one, unfortunately, wasn't released. Was it Family on Board? But
Family on Board. The reason I mentioned that one is because Tony Sirico, who played Paulie Walnuts on The Sopranos, was in that movie with me.
right, right. But you've been in many other movies and TV series. Law and Order, I believe you've been on a couple
I
episodes.
was on Law and Order. I was on New York Undercover, Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Right, Curb Your
Quite a few.
Enthusiasm.
Quite a few.
Right. Okay. Now I was watching this special episode, 25th anniversary episode where I think it was the Today Show. They invited all the cast members of the Sopranos on to talk about the 25th anniversary, and they talked about like their first auditions and the chemistry of the cast and to me, it seemed like, success is makes people look at things a lot differently, I suppose. Like now that the show is all successful, everyone's a loving family, and everybody loved each other. They had tattoos of each other on, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure it was a little bit of a different story trying to get this thing off the ground. But I couldn't help but sense there was a certain chemistry or bonding. Like they talked about James and said how he was essentially the captain of the show. Being the star of the show, he would kind of take charge if there was an issue, or he would kind of go to bat for people and stuff like that. In your experience, you've been with a lot of cast on a lot of sets. Do you notice that it's usually the star that does tend to take care of these sorts of things, like with a good cast
Oh,
anyway?
sure. Every show, let me tell you, the most successful shows are ensembles.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a quote star, but the rest of the cast has to be very good as well. And an ensemble for a TV show, the ensemble is what makes the show. Any great show you name, you go back to The Honeymooners or I Love Lucy in the old days of television.
Yeah.
It's not just uh, Jackie Gleason; it's the rest of the cast. Also, it's not just Lucille Ball; it was the rest of the cast. So it's not just James Gandolfini. You have to have a good ensemble. But yes, the star usually sets the pace. It usually revolves around the star. The set all depends on the star. If you have a star that likes to work very laid back and nice and easy, that's how the set will be.
Right.
If you have a star who likes things to be, you know, very intense, very energetic, then that's how the set's going to be. So the star does set the pace of the set.
Right.
But what makes the success of the show is a good ensemble. You have to
Right.
have a good ensemble.
Right.
If you
Basically,
have a guy in the lead who's all ego, the show will be he'll destroy it because you have to let everybody else shine,
right.
not just you.
Right.
Because if everybody else shines, it makes you shine even more.
Right.
As the star, if you have a good ensemble backing you up, it makes you look even better.
Everybody brings
And I've
something
worked
to the
on
table.
yes, and I've worked on many projects that failed because the guy in charge had too much of an ego,
Right.
and he didn't give his ensemble due. As a matter of fact, he felt like he was competing with them. You're not competing with them.
Right.
You're working together as a unit so that you'll all come out smelling like roses,
Right. 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 That makes sense.
as opposed to smelling like crap.
Right. Or coming out on DVD and looking, going into the bin. But
Well, no,
okay.
even if you could have a great ensemble, a great show, and they don't always get green lighted, which means they don't always get,
Right.
they don't always make it on
Right.
air.
Right.
And
That's
a lot of things go straight to DVD. So there's a lot of different reasons why things don't always work. But
right.
a good reason you could bet if you got an egomaniac in charge, it's not going to work at all.
Right. And The Sopranos did run for 6 seasons. 86 episodes. Maybe not long enough for a lot of people, but it definitely, like a firecracker, it went out in a blaze of glory, which is pretty much all you could ask for with an innovative, groundbreaking show like The Sopranos. So,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So we're out of time, but I'd like to thank you so much, Vic, for coming on MMA Crossfire Live and sharing your thoughts and experiences with The Sopranos. Muzzy Nardo has his part, maybe a small part, but a critical part indeed. To
Well, yes, I am part of the Sopranos history,
you are
and very proud
forever,
to be.
you are inextricably linked to The Sopranos, and you enjoy the
This day.
benefits. Yeah, you enjoy the benefits to this day of being associated with The Sopranos. Thank you so much for sharing those experiences. Is there anything else that you wanted to let the readers know before we go?
No, just look for some future episodes, and hopefully we'll be doing that one about Batman next, because that's one I look forward to.
Right, and let's plug the YouTube channel. You've got your YouTube channel there. Is it Vic Martino on the YouTube?
Yes, I have two channels,
Right.
Vic Martino
Hmm.
and Vic Martino Official,
Right.
and
Vic
you can
Martino
see a lot
official.
of fun videos there.
Right.
Most of them really good. There's some clinkers there, but I think most of them you'll enjoy.
Yeah, particularly if
And
you are
you can see part of my Sopranos episode. My scene from the Sopranos is up there as well. If you
exactly
type
right there.
you type in Vic Martino Vic Martino on the Sopranos.
Right. And it's Vic Martino on pretty much your social media like TikTok and Instagram.
Oh yes, Facebook Vic Martino, uh, TikTok, Instagram, uh, Twitter, X, whatever they call it now. Are they still on MySpace? I'm even on MySpace, but
No,
I don't use
MySpace
that.
is
I
no
don't think
more.
anyone.
No more.
But
Well,
yes, I'm online. If you type in Google Vic Martino, you'll find me.
all right. All right. Just Vic Martino, and it will guide you to wherever, uh, whatever platform you're on. Vic Martino is your guide. Vic, thank you so much for stopping by. Like
Thank
I
you.
said,
It's been my pleasure.
all right, Crossfire Nation. This has been this special edition, Sopranos edition of MMA Crossfire Live. We will see you next Sunday. Until then, for Vic Martino, I'm Kanai Andrews. Enjoy the fights, everybody.